Washington's immigration battle just escalated again. After Donald Trump removed Kristi Noem as Homeland Security Secretary, Senator Catherine Cortez Masto says one firing isn't enough. Democrats now want major reforms to U.S. immigration and customs enforcement, and the political fight is only getting bigger.
Senator Nevada.
Mr. President, every day Americans across this country are watching as federal immigration enforcement commits egregious abuses of power. They're watching as this administration encourages the brutalization of our communities. Now, while the focus has been on certain cities like Chicago, Minneapolis, and Los Angeles, rightfully so because of what we're seeing on our screens every day, the reality is that President Trump's out-of-control immigration enforcement is happening everywhere. Everywhere. I have heard stories in my home state of Nevada where immigration enforcement is actually the enforcers, the individuals, are following people home after they go to church. And where our local police officers are being threatened by them to turn over their undocumented family members who are not violent criminals. It is outrageous. And the truth is, what we're seeing on TV and social media is only the tip of the iceberg. Now, I want to highlight a group of people we haven't been hearing enough about recently who are being immediately affected by this administration, and that's the Dreamers. Dreamers are men and women who came to this country as children. They have only ever known the United States as their home. The Dreamers that I know in Nevada, they go to college, they become a part of our workforce, they pay billions of dollars in taxes, and they are woven in the fabric of every community in Nevada. And many of them are protected by the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, or the DACA program, as many know in this country. DACA protects immigrants who came to the United States as children from deportation, and it authorizes them to work legally. Let me just say that again. DACA is a program that was set up here in the United States, and it protects these children from deportation, and it authorizes them to work legally in this country, pay taxes, be a part of the economy. DACA isn't obtained at random. These individuals, these Dreamers, these are applicants that undergo intense scrutiny. And every 2 years, when recipients apply to renew their status, they go through a new background check. In my state, we have over 10,000 Dreamers who are DACA recipients. Now, across the country, there are over 500,000 DACA recipients. Let me tell you who they are. They are nurses, they're small business owners, they're neighbors, they're friends, they're teachers. They love this country, and they feel as American as U.S. citizens do. And let me just also say this. In the middle of COVID, who do you think was on the front line of the healthcare industry to protect Americans and ensure that they were safe? It was Dreamers. But despite the fact that DACA recipients are supposed to be protected from deportation, this administration has chipped away at these protections. They have encouraged DACA recipients to self-deport. Think about this, to self-deport to a country they've never been to, they've never lived in. Former Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, who was just fired for incompetence, admitted last month that they deported more than 80 DACA recipients. We don't have the answers to why this happened because we can't get a response from Homeland Security. But let me tell you what it does to Dreamers in my state and across the country. Dreamers have always had to live with uncertain futures, but now that uncertainty is worse than ever. And unfortunately, DACA is currently under attack in the courts because Republican attorneys general across the country want to tear down the program. And for Dreamers who are too young to apply for DACA, well, unfortunately, they're on their own. And I'll tell you what, because of that, immigration enforcement is exploiting it. The administration's immigration enforcement is out of control. You just have to turn on the TV, you see it. It's over excessive. Dreamers are fearing for their safety, for their lives. They have worked so hard to create here in this country. We're seeing countless examples of this across the country, and I want to share some of these stories. Several of them are anonymous because, as we know, and we've seen far too often, that this administration will engage in retribution against immigrant families who dare to speak out publicly. But I think it's important you understand the implications here in Washington. The decisions that we are making are having a real impact in our communities amongst our neighbors. So, I'm going to share a couple of the stories with you. In Denver, Colorado, a college sophomore studying business and her younger sister, who was about to graduate from high school, were held in an immigration detention center for 4 months. Now, their stepfather is a veteran of the U.S. military, and neither sister has any criminal history, But they were detained all the same they were detained, why and how? Because they went to their scheduled check-in appointment that they were required to do. They were following the law, and ICE detained them, held them for 4 months. Caroline is a 20-year-old nursing student who has lived in Utah since the age of 7. She was arrested without explanation and spent 15 traumatic days in a Colorado ICE detention center despite having a clean record, a valid work permit, and a driver's license. An aspiring engineering college in the Chicago area was deported after passing through airport security on his way to visit his family for Thanksgiving. He came to the United States from El Salvador at age 10 to escape life-threatening violence, and now he's been torn away from his family and his future. There's Jimena, who has lived in Georgia since she was 4 years old and is currently studying business in college. During a routine traffic stop, she was handed over to ICE and detained for more than 2 weeks before the charges against her were dismissed. Now, some will say, oh, well, the charges were dismissed. Think about this. I don't know. You're going through your life. You're going to college. You're studying business. You get stopped at a routine traffic stop, and then you get arrested and put in jail for 2 weeks. 19-year-old studying business administration in Alabama has been in immigration detention since January. She helps her family run their small business. She volunteers with her church. She's an essential part of her community. But all that is now at risk as she awaits possible deportation. And then there's Anya, who has a full scholarship to study business at Babson College. But while at the airport to surprise her family again for Thanksgiving, federal authorities detained and then deported her to Honduras, directly defying a federal judge's emergency stay that was issued the night before. Even after this administration admitted this was a mistake on their part, Ani still remains in Honduras trying to get back to her family. And then we have a music major at school in New York. And his family, they were detained as they were leaving church services. He was moved across the country during his 2-month detainment, and despite facing and fighting deportation, he is determined to finish his degree and become a music teacher. Marcelo, a high school student originally from Brazil. He was detained by ICE while driving to volleyball practice. Over the course of 6 days, he reported being held with about 40 men, sleeping on concrete floors with thin blankets, and experiencing poor conditions, included limited showering. And we have a student in New York studying education who needed just one more class to graduate. He was swept up during an immigration enforcement action on a public street and was detained for 1 month. 1 month, even though she had a pending application for special immigrant juvenile status. Now her education is on hold as she works to recover from her ordeal. And then there's Emerson, fled gang violence in Honduras with his mother 12 years ago. Honor student, star soccer player. That was until he was detained at a routine ICE check, and deported to Honduras alone without explanation. There's a theme. Besides the over-abusive, excessive, illegal actions of this administration, if you notice, these DACA recipients, these are not violent criminals. Just the opposite. Because they have a certain status, because they're following the law, they're going to their check-ins, they're trying to follow the law. They have been already vetted by this country. They don't want to do anything wrong. More so than anyone I know, DACA recipients don't commit crimes. They don't even want to commit a street violation because they want the opportunity to stay here, be United States citizens, live and work like everyone else. I just gave you 10 stories, but I'm telling you there are so many more like this across the country. These young men and women are not the worst of the worst that President Trump promised to go after. They are just the opposite. They're inspirational people who rose up despite the adversity they faced, and they love this country. And in return for their loyalty, for their hard work, for their commitment to this country, this administration is punishing them. Trump and his henchmen are choosing to go after these dreamers. This is a choice by this administration. What the administration is doing to DACA recipients, to dreamers, to their families, and even to the United States citizens goes against everything our nation was founded on. And I'll tell you what, now is our moment, more than ever, to say no more, to stand up. I don't care what party you're from, I don't care what state you're from, I don't care your background and who you are. If you are an American and you care about who we are as a country and our ideals and how we treat our neighbors and our friends, it is time to take action. And I'll tell you the first thing that we can do here in this body in a bipartisan way. We can pass the Bipartisan Dream Act to give these young people a path to citizenship that would put them out of harm's way and give them the full rights and responsibilities that they deserve in this country. And I'll tell you what, this is the very reason why I and many of my colleagues on the Democratic side will not give another dollar to ICE and CBP until we have some common sense guardrails in place so this indiscriminate enforcement against our communities stops. And I'll be the first to tell you, firing Kristi Noem doesn't cut it. That's not enough. Americans want and demand transparency. They want accountability, and they are entitled to it. They want a government that works for the people. So now, more than ever, when people ask, what are you doing? Not just me, not as just as a Democrat, but as an American, as a citizen of this country, as the daughter of immigrants, granddaughter of immigrants, I will tell you this, I will continue to fight. Not only for Americans in this country, but for dreamers and their families and those people that you have just heard. The stories are real. I shared with him today because I'm hopeful that instead of just sitting in this room and talking about numbers and policy and partisan bickering, we understand the real implications of the decisions that we make here on the people back home. People back home who believe in the American dream, like my family. I say this time and time again. My grandfather's from Chihuahua, Mexico. When he came to this country, he served in the military, became a United States citizen. Do you think there was a reason why he did it? Hell yes. He would never imagine, but he would hope that one day his granddaughter would be standing on the floor of the United States Senate, fighting for the same people and the same rights as every person who comes to this country. That's what this is about. And I will never stop fighting for it. Mr. President, I yield the floor.
The political fight over immigration enforcement has reached a new level in Washington. After President Donald Trump removed Kristi Noem as head of the Department of Homeland Security, some Democrats say the move doesn't go nearly far enough. Senator Catherine Cortez Masto made that clear during remarks on Capitol Hill, arguing that the issue isn't just about leadership, it's about the system itself. According to Cortez Masto, replacing one official won't fix deeper concerns surrounding the conduct and oversight of U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, the federal agency responsible for immigration enforcement. This debate intensified after a series of controversial incidents involving federal agents. The shootings of 2 U.S. citizens in Minneapolis sparked national outrage and calls for investigations into ICE operations. Democrats argue these incidents highlight the need for stronger oversight, new accountability rules, and clearer standards governing how immigration agents operate. Some lawmakers have even threatened to block funding for the Department of Homeland Security until reforms are enacted. Their message is simple. Firing one person doesn't solve what they see as systemic problems within the agency. Republicans, however, see the situation very differently.